Yeah, I indicated to Mr. Paulson that we would get him out. He has a plane to catch, so I'd like to now yield a closing statement to the ranking member, Mr. Issa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for this hearing, and I look forward to the reform part of our oversight and reform. And at this time, I'd like to ask unanimous consent that the committee consolidate questions of the minority and majority so that we can keep from overburdening Mr. Paulson and still work with him to get follow-up answers.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you. Mr. Paulson, I personally want to thank you as a private citizen for coming here and giving us so much of your time and your insight into what happened at this very difficult time. There are unanswered questions. There are questions that we will never know. We will never know, had Merrill Lynch stayed on its own, stood on its own, and received, let's say, half of the TARP money that the combined company received, would it in fact today be a viable going concern? Would the backup plans envisioned by the Treasury and the Fed, in case B of A were to back out, would they in fact have worked? We'll never know that. Mr. Secretary, I want to thank you for your attempts to make sure we never had to know it. I, in fact, have been an outspoken critic of some of the activities, including the threats. I am and will continue to be an outspoken critic of expanding the Fed's role beyond the monetary supply and giving them a direct role in the systemic risk question. I do so because I believe that the Fed has a primary and premier obligation as an economic modeling organization. Well, you have a long history in mergers and acquisitions, understanding of what a, quote, good merger is and a bad merger is. That's not inherently a core talent that we expect to see in the Fed. So as we work to go forward to find the right models in case something like this happens again, and hopefully the right models to see it before it happens and prevent it, I hope you'll continue to be a resource for us, because I do believe that the Commission, which has just been formed, and this committee have an obligation to make sure we get it right so we don't have to do it again. Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you for this series and for your continued partnership on a bipartisan basis, and particularly for your help today in making sure that everyone got their questions in, including those who have not yet asked them. And with that, I close and yield back and thank the Chairman.
Thank you very much for your statement. Let me just say, Mr. Paulson, again, thank you for coming, but still there's some unanswered questions, that I would hope that maybe you could give it to us in writing, that, when they looked at the books at Merrill Lynch, they realized there was a $9 billion shortfall. This is according to Mr. Lewis. And then, of course, they discovered further that maybe it was a $12 billion shortfall. But my question to you, and hope that you give it back to us in writing, because when I asked you earlier today, you didn't respond to it. How did they get from $12 billion to $20 billion? There's no real answer to
I can tell you, that's one I can tell you. I can't give it to you in writing because I don't know. That what I heard was a call on the 17th where the losses were $18 billion pre-tax. By the 19th, there were $22 billion pre-tax. And what I said to people, that's a loss that takes my breath away when the market hears that. Now, all I could say to you is December, the end of November and December were the worst months in the marketplace. And banks, it was the worst month for the economy. If you look at what was going on economically, it was the worst month in terms of the credit products and banks' losses. And so I didn't, when I looked at it, I wasn't shocked that this could have happened so quickly. But I don't have that explanation. You would have to get that from Merrill Lynch or B of A.
Yeah, I could see this if we were talking about millions, but we're talking about billions, like billion boy?
Yeah. That was my reaction. I saw and witnessed things that I never had seen before, and so what was going on in the marketplace at that point in time, what B of A and Merrill subsequently explained to me was the products they had in inventory, the credit products, there was a big erosion in value based upon what was going on in the markets. But I don't know. It was I heard about it for the first time on the 17th.
Right. Let me just finish by saying, last year at the height of the financial crisis, major decisions were made about who was going to live and who was going to die. Lehman went down, but AIG was saved. Bear Stearns was sold off. Bank of America received billions. 9 big banks were forced to take billions. In many instances, they didn't even ask for. Most significantly, all of this was decided behind closed doors with no oversight. In a way, the Bank of America, Merrill Lynch deal illustrates the dangers of concentrating enormous power in only 1 or 2 individuals. When you turn over complete authority to the Treasury Department or the Feds, with no accountability and no checks and balances, this is what you get. Oral commitments involving billions of dollars, seemingly arbitrary decision-making, and residual suspicion. Mr. Paulson has stated that the principal regulatory agencies, the SEC and the FDIC, were consulted in this merger. I think it is clear that we need to hear next from the former SEC chairman, Mr. Cox, and from FDIC chairperson Baer, to better understand the nature and extent of their participation. I intend to schedule a hearing for the purpose following the August recess. There's some unanswered questions here. And if we're going to reform our financial system, I think we need to have the answers to these questions. So, Mr. Paulson, I want to thank you for taking the time and come, and I hope that you will become a resource in many, many ways to be able to help us to sort of unfold and get through this mess and to be able to come back stronger than ever before. Thank you so much for testifying.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.